The final day at the Mid-Atlantic CrossFit Challenge was nothing short of incredible. People were sitting at the edge of their seats, or like me, at the edge of my live stream. Here to recap all the action for our final recap show of the weekend is Dex Hopkins, Brian Friend. Oh my gosh, what a crazy packed day. What was it like being in there, seeing these events play out, Brian?
Emotional. I mean, it was one of the more emotional finishes, definitely for the men's and women's fields on both the good and bad side that I've had a chance to be at live. We'll get into it, obviously, but there were some big time success stories and also some heartbreak on the other side of those things. And it was like pretty palpable. You could feel it that people were happy for one person, but feeling sad for another. And that's just how it goes when you have tight races.
Dex, as a spectator and also a competitor just last weekend, how did it feel seeing some of those emotions that the athletes were obviously going through?
Up and I got none of that. One more time.
A little bit of a Wi-Fi connection.
My
As an
service,
athlete,
I don't know why it just dropped all of a sudden.
as an athlete last weekend, a spectator
it's
this
dying. I don't
weekend,
even
what was
get
it
the-
like for you to see all of the emotion going through the athletes, especially at the end?
We talked about it all weekend. I enjoy the close races. I think from fourth to maybe sixth or seventh, there were 3 points for the win that separated them back in. If you were on there announcing the top 5 of the games, I mean, it was just anxiety and like all the emotion. I feel like that may be my favorite thing. We talked about the coaches going crazy, but I mean, everything was tight. And I'm like personally invested because Noah's one of my good friends, and like seeing him have to throw 2 haymakers on the last day and claw back in. Dallin Pepper's the homie too, and he put down a complete weekend of, hey, it's my time to go back in the open division and see what we got. So it was I'm exhausted. That's how I felt. But it was. Well, I think it was great, man. I told Wilson Pock that runs MACC Syndicate. I said, man, you're 2 for 2 on weekends where it was just like a banner thing for the finishes on most of the things and just running a good event. So, yeah, it was a roller coaster. I am as sweaty right now as I probably was last weekend.
From athlete to a spectator, still the nerves and you're still having all the feelings. Let's get into it, starting with the men's leaderboard, qualifying for the CrossFit Games. Saxon Panchik in first, Dallin Pepper, Cole Sager, Noah Olson, and Spencer Panchik. Brian, both Panchiks, the twins, qualifying for the games. What do you think it's like for especially Spencer to finally get that ticket?
The last conversation I had before I ran over here was with Saxon and his family. Spencer's still inside doing his drug test, but Saxon, he was not in first place going into that event. He overtook Dallin to get the event win, and Spencer was not in fifth place going into that event, and he overtook Tyler Christoffel to get the last spot to the games. And so both of them, for their respective placements there, came down to the last event. And, that's just what this sport is now. Is you have to fight right to the end, and the programmers are putting movements right at the end of these finales that demand focus and attention to detail. And overhead lunge, we had overhead squats last week at the Lowlands where it's make or break with a really difficult thing to do at the end of a stressful weekend. And both of those guys looked good. I mean, Spencer passed 1 or 2 guys on that last lunge. It was really tight for a few spaces, and he needed those points. This is 10 years coming for him. He started CrossFit when he was 2012, I think. He's been close before. Obviously, he's watched his brothers do it for a long time now. And I just can't imagine what he's feeling. This is it's got to be one of the most relieving, the work and the years have paid off type stories that we've had or that we'll have this year.
Dex, I spoke with Noah not too long ago as he was waiting to go through his drug testing, but he clawed his way to the top to get in that top 5 spot all weekend long. As somebody who knows him on a personal level, what do you think this 9th CrossFit Games really means to him and shows about his training?
I ran up and hugged him after, and hey, I'm proud of you. But the thing to me, outwardly for him, is known for being the nice guy and, will shake all the hands, high five all the hands, and love on everybody. But the last day and a half, man, where uncharacteristically on the start mat looks like a crazy person, and he kept that the whole time. And so while this is not like the ideal path, and there were some people that put like the sleeper hold on the weekend, like Saxon and Dallin, this guy had to uncharacteristically claw back with just haymakers the last day and a half. And he did, man, a 4-2 and a 2 to finish the weekend after a rough start with the complex on some misses, and then just a strong finish on the last three. I mean, I thought he would make it 4 or 5. I know that the job is to get to the show and do well at the games, and that's what matters. So this will be an afterthought. But the things to take with him that I thought, and I made sure to voice them to him, was that, dude, you being a killer, just like akin to seeing Danielle Brandon have the blood in the water with Brooke on that event yesterday and just try to run her into the ground. He did that in the last 2 events. And I know Berman snuck in on the first workout today, and then the last one was just a haymaker thing. But if he takes that killer instinct with him, man, coupled with the good vibe stuff, it's going to be, a time at the games. I'm excited for him as a friend and honestly a fan to get to watch him and go do that. Like, I think that may be a piece that was missing, and he's talked about it before as like, trying to have the killer instinct. And Dallin Pepper does it the best to most people, or, except for Matt. He'll come off of one implement and look left and right and adjust his speed based on that. And so seeing Noah get some of that stuff sprinkled into it to where he can be a killer and kind of on the hunt, especially this weekend where you have to be, that's exciting for me.
Moving into the women's field, at the top of the leaderboard, Danielle Brandon, then Sydney McAlishan, Bailey Rail, Brooke Wells, Rebecca Fuseli were separated by just points, 4th, 5th, and 6th. Only 1 point separated them. Another crazy field throughout the weekend. Brian, what do you think this really says about the depth of competition on the women's side?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting trio right there in the 4, 5, 6 spot, because for all 3 of them, it's very emotional for different reasons. Brooke obviously is the story that most people are well aware of, coming back from last year's devastating, games finish with that injury. And she talked about it, that this is a team effort on her end to be able to do this. She couldn't have done it on her own. And it literally came down to the last event for her. So I think it just amplifies that emotion a little bit more. Rebecca's super young. She's 22. She's up and comer. People were looking at her. And I got to be honest, I was very, very impressed. That last workout is tough. The pressure was on. She dropped that barbell at the end. And like we saw what happened with Tyler Christoffel, where that's a movement that can just stop you in your tracks. But she took a couple breaths, picked it back up, finished 3rd. And at that point, it was good enough to get in, because Kelly Clark had beat her, but she'd only beat her by 1 spot. And Kelly was 5 points behind Rebecca, and she only gained 4 points with that 2nd place to Rebecca's 3rd. So Rebecca, hats off to you, man. That was amazing. Really, really impressed me this weekend. And like we said, when there's a high on one end, there's a low on the other. And Kelly's been doing this for 11 years and trying to make it, and to miss by 1 point this year, and it looked like it was so good for her, is, for people who know her, she's been out in Santa Cruz forever. She's tested so many workouts out there. She's been on the demo team. She's like a huge part of the California CrossFit community, and I think a lot of people were really pulling for her. So this was kind of tough. I don't know if she'll have another shot, but I did get a chance to talk to her afterwards, and I would say she's just like extremely professional. She's very mature. She was obviously upset about it from a competitive aspect, but I think she knows that she put her best forward this weekend, and to close out with a 2nd place finish on an event like that is probably, at least something that she can feel good about, despite not getting the results she wanted.
Dex, looking at an athlete like Danielle Brandon, did you expect to see her at the top of the leaderboard at the end of the weekend? I think we all knew that she would probably get a games ticket, but the last 3 events, all 1st place finishes.
I think so, man. I think I don't think it was a surprise. The first event would be not a struggle. I mean, she still got a 13th, but after that, a 2, 5, and 3 first, that's a run. And if you see how their whole camp operates, I mean, as soon as, like Kyra was done with her event, they went to the stands to cheer for them. And so, I mean, there is a real just wealth of energy from all that, and she feeds into that stuff. They have it at home. And she was last year, man, when she, they make her wear the mask, kind of segregate her at the games, you see that she's a killer. You see that she's a killer, and it was on full display all weekend because after the lift, she was strangling this thing to death. And in the fashion of, I'm going to let you get out ahead, and then when I see you take your foot off the gas, I'm stomping it through the floor. So super impressed with her. Half of one of her eyebrows is pink, and it stayed pink the whole weekend, so that was cool. So
I love it.
Yeah,
She said that she's going to keep the pink for the CrossFit Games too. When I talked to her,
she's impressive, man. She's a good mover, and she is, she's a seasoned vet, man, and she acts like it. And she is very about the business, and at the same time has a lot of fun. She's fun to watch, and then every finish where her Justin Kotler and our manager Cooper and all them, it's a party on the finish line for them, and I love to watch it. She's impressive.
And then finally, we go to the teams. I think the biggest storyline with them is CrossFit Mayhem Independence will be the third Mayhem team to go to the games. What do you guys think this really says about the training environment there, that they are able to send not one, not three solid teams to be part of the competition?
Well, I think it's a testament just to the environment that they've created there, where people are willing to change their whole lives to go there and be a part of what they're doing. And we've seen it on the individual side with people like Haley Adams, and then she's decided to stay there and make that her home. And now we're seeing it with people, Samuel Cornway, like he's got a family in Montreal, and he came down to do this year. And Sasha Nieves is from South America, and she made it work to stay in the U.S. and do this. Alexis Johnson's been around forever, and she could, and she decided to go there of all places to compete on a team this year. And so I think that obviously they're all incredible teams and great athletes, but just to be able to create a culture and a community in a place like that people want to be in and want to be a part of, I think that's what's really special about what's going on in Cookeville.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then in the other qualifying teams that we will see at the CrossFit Games, CrossFit Shoofly Storm Squadron, Camo Athletics CrossFit, Coda CrossFit United, and CrossFit Kilo 2. Any surprises with 2 through 5 on the leaderboard that we will see in Madison, Dex?
I thought West Chase had a good team last year. I thought they would creep back up. But yeah, I watched Jalen Franklin's as a buddy. And so he's on Shoofly, man, and they did great. Kind of very unknown. Danielle Dunlap is on their team. She's, been around for a while. She did well at the MACC. Shayla, I forget Shayla's last name, but she, both of them are good, man. Nick, her husband, is on the team with them, and they're kind of, both the guys relatively unknown. Jalen snatches 290 the first day, and then they kind of show everybody they work well together, and the fitness is there. So I look for them to do really well because, across the board, they're strong, all four. Camo Athletics, I was pumped about. Nick Peterson's a good friend. And like you said, last year they got kind of pulled out because they had a girl pop unsuspecting, but replaced her and obviously hadn't missed a beat. They ended up winning the last workout. And he just got his hair and beard grown out, looks like a psychopath, so that was fun. But yeah, no real surprise. Guys with beards and long hair, it's a good time. But
are we going to see you grow out your hair again, Dex?
If I didn't have kids, and I looked at my wedding pictures the other day, and now I think of in terms of like, what am I going to get made fun of by these kids when they can, notice all this stuff. And my hair at the point is when we got married is 1,000% going to be just a decade of jokes when they turn like 12 to just plus the rest of their life. So I'll keep the weatherman thing going. I'm probably going to let the beard grow a little bit, but no chance. But yeah, it was usual suspects for me. I really liked the team events. They flowed really well. Just the program was good at this one, man. It was fun to watch. Even the ones that had a lot of moving parts, they were cool to watch, like the row one, the dumbbell squat clean, the one where they had the worm hold while they were doing gymnastics, all the moving parts, which sometimes can be somebody doing too much. They worked out really well, and it's fun to watch. And it looked like it was really hard to kind of coordinate and come up with strategies for those things, which I also like. You make people work as a team and kind of show that off. So showcasing that's a big deal to me, getting away from the relay stuff. But I thought it was a great weekend. It was really fun to watch all the team stuff.
Brian, when we look at the final day for the women's field, we started with event 5. Danielle Brandon, when she was going into those box jump overs, she literally went into a squat. She didn't just throw her body over like some of the other athletes. Have you ever seen that before? I haven't.
No, but I knew that she was pretty excited for that one, and particularly the back half of it. Like for her, was kind of get through the dumbbells, attack the toes to bar, and then send it on the burpee box get overs. I think she knew she was going to be better than most of the women on that, and being in the lead, getting to them was just exciting for her. Yeah, I mean, she had a great finish. First on the end of the day today, and I think Noah Olson for the men kind of stole the show at the second. And that's what you'd expect from from people who are hungry for whatever their goals are. I think it was important for Danielle to win this weekend. She has a lot of self-belief, but you still have to go out there and do it. And I think you could kind of feel it in her energy today that she's taking that next step, and like I think that's going to carry over to the games, and we're going to see her in the mix with basically the next 10 best women in the world, one of the next 10 best women in the world in some order after after Tia, of course.
Yeah, and then even when we're looking at the men for event 5, it was really insane to see how many races and athletes were going head to head. Jake Berman kind of coming in from behind throughout the weekend. He works with Training Think Tank. Him and Noah Olson are buddies. What do we know about him? I think he is in a last chance qualifier position. Do we think that he's a possible contender to potentially get to the games?
I think so. I mean, he was a sleeper on a lot of the events. He snuck in at the end of them and just finished strong for a lot. I mean, even the last one, he got, less than a second ahead of Noah. But yeah, I mean, he's a strong guy. And, obviously has a good training environment. I know Noah goes down there before the games to kind of do a camp, so he'll benefit from that and being in the LCQ. I haven't looked at who else has fallen into that roster for that. But I think, man, he is a fit guy. I think if the LCQ is not like a power athlete kind of deal where it's kind of a heavy load across the board, it's a lot of fitness, he's going to be in there swinging because he was on the back end of every event. He was finishing strong, and he was right there pushing somebody and kind of trying to mess the leaderboard up as he clawed up. But yeah, he's exciting to watch, man. It was it was really good watching him. I think he's got a shot. He's a fit guy.
And I mean, we talk about messing up the leaderboard. I don't really know which other way to say it, but so many athletes were kind of screwing things up. You didn't really know where people stood unless you're really good at numbers, which I am not. You had to wait for the leaderboard to see exactly what placement people would be in all weekend long. We move into that final event, and it was like everybody was sitting at the edge of their seats on the women and men's side, waiting for the finalization of who's going to the games. Brian, before you were talking about, the emotion on the positive side and then the negative side, because a lot of heartbreak as a lot of people were also excited to go to the games. What is it like for these athletes as they are waiting for their fate to be announced?
Yeah, I think it's different for, depending on who the athlete is. I think in some cases, like, Tyler Christoffel, he kind of knew that he hadn't done enough there. And it's just tough because even if you know that, you just have to sit there and wait. Like that's part of the gig is sit there and wait in your lane for them to make the announcement, and everyone's there looking at you, and they probably know that you didn't do enough, and you just have to it's a really tough thing to do for someone like that. But then in the case of the women, I don't think Brooke knew. I don't think that Rebecca knew, and I don't think Kelly knew. It was that close.
No one knew.
And that's just a ton of anxiety. In fact, they announced the results, and they didn't announce how close it was. And after the fact, they put the leaderboard up on the big screen in the Coliseum, and you just heard this huge gasp from the crowd when everyone saw 1 point, 1 point, 1 point. And, and then there's people who, like I was sitting with Alicia or Adele and Pepper, who this is a big weekend for them in terms of just saying, like, I'm here and I mean business. And they get the opportunity, having done what they needed to do throughout the whole weekend, including the final event, to just kind of celebrate with their team and feel good about everything, and then they get it followed up with the acknowledgement of the official results being announced. So you get the full spectrum, but it's it's hard to watch sometimes for the guys like Tyler in that situation, because you feel for him, how hard he's worked, and how good he was. He was in the top 5 every single event until the last 10 feet of lunges really on the weekend. And, everyone knows what happened to him last year. He was 1 spot out in semifinals. He was 1 spot out in the LCQ. And he's 2 spots out here, but it's going to feel like more of the same. And I don't know. Like, you have a guy like James Sprague last week, and, he's super young and early in his career, and you're hopeful about what this can do to set him up for the future. But Tyler's been doing this for a long time. and that's a tough one for him to take. He's got a really great and supportive community, and I'm sure that he'll be, happy for Bailey, but I think this one's going to sting for him for a little while.
What do you guys think it was about that last event that, I mean, he just kept getting no reps? Do you think that he went out too hot? Do you think that, like, he knew so much was on the line? Or what are your thoughts?
I thought, did he do the muscle ups unbroken, Brian? Did you see that?
The first set?
Yeah.
He might have. I think a bunch of the guys did in that last heat.
Yeah. See, I more drop than I thought would with just the flow of those movements. I thought it would be everybody shooting a big shot. A few of them dropped intentionally. I know Noah got a weird swing, but I'm not sure if he came out too hot, man, or if that was just a really fast heat and a really good programmed workout. So we're at the end, like Brian's talking about, these guys are set up to have to express like your peak coordination and kind of how deep is that tank. And so when we run it hot, choose something like a pretty, relatively heavy overhead walking lunge, and you're trying to put the gas pedal down. It happens, man. He got no reps on the last step or in the middle, and then again on the last step. And then, I mean, like you said, it'll stop you in your tracks, that movement, especially after the lead up, the front squats, the front rack lunge. So your core's beat up, my shoulders are pumped out, and you're in the heat of this crazy battle. And it breaks my heart for the kid, because I know for last year, he and I talked several times about, even at the games, how bad it felt and how mad he was about, not getting backloaded and it being so close and kind of smelling the pie but not getting to taste it. And, I think it'll sting for a while. But, I mean, like I said, they have a good community. The guy's a hell of a competitor. I competed against him in teams when he was on 417. And his career is not even close to being over. He's going to have some shots, but he'll be good in the LCQ, man, also. I mean, he's an incredibly strong guy and obviously very fit. So I hope it sorts out for him, man.
We have a couple weeks left of semifinals. I'm curious what you both think. Was this and will this be the most stacked and competitive competition that we will see?
I'll say this. I think that in terms of close race, 1 point between 4, 1 point between 5 and 6, like you can't really get much closer than that. So on the leaderboard for the women's side, probably. But I think that, and we might have even mentioned it before, I think that the men's field in the Granite Games is just as deep, as competitive as this men's field was. So if you're a fan of drama, I would expect more of the same, at least for the men next week in Minnesota.
Yeah, especially with the programming. I mean, they have the power stuff set up, and they brought the power horses. It is all like muscle ponies, and it'll be exciting.
Okay, what storylines are you guys going to be watching as these 10 athletes and 5 teams head to the CrossFit Games? Anything that we should already start thinking about before we get to Madison? Dex, you can start.
Man, I hate to harp on my buddy stuff, but I want Noah to go. I want Noah to go and put hands around this thing and get one. Like he got close Matt's last year, and I'll never forget how I was losing my absolute mind on that workout he beat Matt in. I think it was at Mary that year in the Coliseum. I want Matt to do well, but I think like an underrated story is going to be Dallin Pepper. I think crushed the teen division for a long time coming in. I mean, he looks like he plays linebacker for the Chicago Bears in the CrossFit off season, and he's going to go and do really well. And I mean, I know I work for Brute, and Matt Torres has a good recipe, man. I mean, he coaches James Sprague, coaches Dallin. Fisa Goffey's one of his. She should do well in her semifinal. But he's going to go and have a squad. I mean, you saw the Pepper Patrol at the finish line when he was getting ready for it. And I'm looking for that kid to have a big year and for Noah to be business as usual with a new kind of killer instinct.
Dex, where do you come up with some of these things?
I got bars. It's just bars on bars.
Okay, Brian, what storylines are you watching as these athletes head to the games?
I think that this is like the top 3 or the top person in each division, Saxon, Danielle, and Mayhem Independence. The question is, how good can each of them be? I mean, Saxon looked incredible this weekend, and I think that there's an opportunity, like an outside opportunity for him to sneak onto the podium if he performs like this in August. Danielle finished 11th last year, and I think that it was a super stressful week for her, but there were a lot of good women missing from the field. I think that you kind of took some out and put some back in, so I think it's a pretty comparable women's field, and I think she's better than she was. So I'm curious how far into the top 10 she can push. And then Mayhem Independence, obviously were very good throughout the weekend, but there's a lot of good teams out there this year. I think that they feel they have an outside chance for the podium. I think that a top 5 finish would be really good for them. And based on the way that they work together and also some of their individual expression of talent this weekend, that's not out of the realm of possibility. So I'm just looking to see how good the winners from the MACC can do when the full games field is finally set.
Another weekend with semifinals down. Dex, Hopkins, Brian Friend, thank you guys so much for recapping all of the action this weekend. And we'll see you guys probably next weekend for another slew of semifinals.